Welcome to 2023, everyone. I hope you had some kind of a good New Year's and a bit of a rest or a break of some kind during the holidays. I did my best, and actually it was a fantastic break for me because it gave me a chance to read your correspondence. You know, I get a lot of correspondence, and I often refer to it on the videos, but truly I only answer a small percentage of what comes in. And naturally, there's correspondence from all over, sometimes in different languages, so I use Google Translate. And I don't want to turn this video into a mini-series either, but we'll actually be looking at a Harrington and Richardson single shot. I was working on a Patreon video, and I wanted to show the patrons some rimfire cartridges that people may not be aware of. Rimfire cartridges used to be quite diverse, and you can, when I can, this doesn't happen very often anymore, but when I can, I buy like a bag of rimfire ammunition from an estate or something. And this is one mini kind of collection, so I tried to stick it to a board, which worked out okay, just so they don't turn over. And I was just working on that, and then I thought I'll work on the Harrington and Richardson video, and then I thought I'll talk about some of your comments, which are quite interesting, I think. But yeah, so I mean, just scanning, and I've got this little rifle here, which is a 25 rimfire. It's a Stevens Model 12, beautifully made little gun. I think I showed it to you before. You know, these are, again, getting quite scarce, and this one is well used, but anyway, I tried the 25 ammunition, which would be this ammo right here. That's 25 rimfire. So I tried one of those rounds, and it fired, and actually I hit a little piece of 2x4, so I don't know how long it's been since this was fired. But yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, there's everything here. There's 32 rimfire, short, long, 41 rimfire, 45. This one, I couldn't find it in any book. Maybe it's for a Swiss rifle. I'll have to check. Then 25. There are all kinds. You may recognize these quicker than I do. Look at this one. It looks kind of like a 357 Magnum. But these are all rimfires, and I have another bag to go through. So I just kind of left it on the table. They don't fall down, but I don't think it's very solid either. So I'll just set that aside, and we'll get to these Harrington Richardson. So, but in fairness to you, because you're writing from all over the place, but mostly from Canada lately, just because Canada is having so much trouble with gun laws, and I only receive letters from a small percentage of the population. Nevertheless, I think it's quite significant, and a lot of the things that people wrote affected the way I think. So I'll just go through some of them. I've got pages and pages. This is only a small, I tried to make notes and do a half-decent job. But before I begin, I should say I worked, I think I told you I worked in Alberta. Oil and gas, they've got tremendous natural resources. They're landlocked, and they, a lot of the letters indicate quite clearly, and it's probably not any news to you, that they feel very unfairly treated, and they're working on some kind of sovereignty laws, or maybe they've passed the law, I'm not sure. Quebec, on the other side of Canada, is also, and has been, dissatisfied for a long time, and actually has their own political party, which is dedicated to their own sovereignty. So not exactly warm and fuzzy feeling in a lot of these letters, but just speaking about Alberta because I know it, what a gorgeous place, and fantastic people, tremendous hunting. You may have heard of Calgary, Edmonton, places like that. And some of the most beautiful places on earth, Lake Louise and Banff and Jasper, terrific province. with a lot of oil, but no pipeline, no way to get it to the Pacific, no way to move it east. We've talked about this before, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when the world did not need oil and gas anymore, or so we were told. How things have changed. Anyway, yeah, so from people who are very concerned about the way they're being treated, and we're talking about, significant upset. Some of the letters reminded me of like Braveheart level upset, with, that movie about Scotland and how the English were treating the Scotland and the people of Scotland. So yeah, one fellow wrote me all the lyrics from the national anthem, and he said, it is not the true North, it is not strong, and it is not free, because people feel their rights have been infringed or are about to be infringed upon. And we've talked about New Zealand and Australia, but those are different cases, and I think it's safe to say that in time Australians will probably find the political will to reverse the laws, but I'm just guessing. I can only go by what you tell me. So that's one thing worth mentioning. Again, I don't want this to turn into a very, very long video. There's a lot of talk about a convoy that traveled from Western Canada to Ottawa. You may have seen this on the news. I know I watched it carefully, and from that, the people are saying they learned that there's a willingness on the part of the federal government to use the Emergency Act, I'm probably not using the right name, and deploy the Canadian Army against the people, which doesn't sound too good. I'm not sure that happened, but that's, people don't forget this kind of thing. From the First Nations, very good letter actually, and quite detailed. He wrote, or she wrote, this is not the first time that they did this to us. First they took our guns, and I don't know when, but first they took our guns, then they manipulated us and tricked us and forced us off our lands, and later they took our children from us. Now they are trying to do it again. So I mean, again, I don't know the exact details, but I know what they're referring to. And in the North, and for Indigenous peoples, these guns are not, novelties or entertainment. Like I said, I spent time on some of the reserves. That was one thing I wanted to say. You may hear on the news, that the statistics for fatalities in cities are lower than in rural areas, but because I worked in these northern areas and very remote areas and reserves, it's a good thing to remember that the services that are available in the North in Canada are minimal. There seems to be money for everything else, but a lot of the reserves still don't have clean water, and the communities outside the reserves aren't that well served. So there are all kinds of social problems, suicide, drug problems, and then somebody gets hurt. There are no clinics, or there are, but they're not accessible, and ambulances are not available the way they are in cities. So what in a city would be some kind of assault can turn into a homicide in a rural area just because there's no one there. These things could easily be resolved, but they're not. And I learned that, by the way, from you, and then reading more about it. So that's a sad situation, and misrepresents, I think, the problems in the cities are the problems that are making some people think that guns need to be banned. But anyway, don't want to be a broken record. So we talked about the First Nations, governments taking away freedoms. Yeah, another letter about homicide rates misrepresented by the government. Not enough policing in rural areas and in the North. Not just one. If these proposed laws pass, then actually, according to these folks that wrote me, Russia will have more free gun laws than Canada, which is kind of interesting. There's all kinds of stuff about Constitution. Talk about all the different countries. Somebody sent me information on all the different countries and all their different gun laws. Another fellow said, this was interesting. Well, there were a few letters about the border between Canada and the United States. And I mean, it's an immense border. It's just about impossible to prevent guns from coming over the border. And the point of those letters, or that letter, was that Mexico only has 2 gun stores. Actually, I think it's 1 functioning gun store. And their constitution actually guarantees the citizens the right to access guns. It's very hard to get a gun legally. But nevertheless, we all know the statistics for homicides in Mexico. There are guns all over the place. There's some kind of disconnect between governments and their thinking about guns. So that was worth mentioning to you. And then another fellow wrote here, the problem isn't the people and it isn't crime. It's governments. For the 100 years of the 20th century, 231 million people were killed or allowed to die. And I went on the web and checked the fellow's link, and that's what it says. 231 million people were killed or allowed to die by human decision through governments. It's governments that do these kinds of things. Of course, there's crime, but it's not 231 million people. And then another fellow wrote me, over the last 3,400 years, humans have been at peace for 268 years, so 8% of the time. Anyway, you can find statistics on almost anything. Yeah, well, it's just too much. We'll have to kind of adjourn. And a lot of it's very upsetting. And for the people in Alberta, I actually, I'm amazed. I don't know exactly what to say or what could be done, but probably you're on the right path in trying to figure out some way to deal with this. I think it's safe to say oppression. That's what it would be called in most other places. And, Canadians are, I think, very compassionate, and they're reluctant to enter into conflict, which is a good thing. But obviously something has to change. All right, well, enough on that. I hope you find that interesting, and please keep sending your comments. Like I said, I could go on here for a long time, and I find it very interesting. But getting back to the H&R, because we ought to remember this is a gun channel. I had a Harrington and Richardson buffalo hunter. Actually, I owned a few of them. They were all excellent. You may know that rifle. It's based on the Handy rifle. Very long barrel, always accurate, always reliable. But over time, I sort of thought maybe I'll sell them. They're just very long. And quite often I'm hunting in forested areas. Anyway, I was talking to a fellow about the H&R 4570 and how much I liked it. And he's a collector too. And he said, well, you've got to get yourself an H&R SHAKIRA. And I said, I've never heard of that rifle. And he said, yeah, SHAKIRA is excellent, quite light and accurate. And obviously that's not the name. I punched in H&R SHAKIRA and I came up with some kind of singer and dancer. It's called a shikari or shikari. So you would think a advanced collector would know that, and he probably did. He was probably pulling my leg. Anyway, this is the shikari, which I think means porter or guide. I looked it up at one time. This is a far more, for me, user-friendly rifle. Actually, I like everything about it. It's got the typical push-button release, and H&R, as you know, doesn't make these anymore, but when they did, the case coloring, I think it's real case coloring. A lot of them are kind of an acid wash. Somebody showed me one that's kind of a dip, and I don't know how those things work, but this seems to be real case coloring. Typical, you know, H&R action. 4570, and I thought I'd show you the rounds, the box anyway. You can see it says on the flap 4570 405, and these are the rounds that can be used in any 4570. 4570 has been around so long, as you probably know. There are rifles that are chambered for it that aren't that strong, so these rounds would be suitable for those early rifles. Some of the more modern 4570s, like the Ruger #1, would be able to take a lot more pressure. Anyhow, I thought I'd show it to you just because you don't see them too often. But this is the SHAKIRA or SHAKIRA, depending on where you live and how you like to pronounce that. And typical butt plate. These, you know, the 4570, it's not recoil free, but it's definitely not a cartridge that most people can't handle to shoot. So again, I just, you know, I'll see if we can focus in on this. I'm not sure if we can. If you can't read it, then we'll take a look in the studio. And I'll just take a shot at that steel plate so that you can see it in action. Oh, and it has a really robust ejector. You'll see what I mean. It really kicks those cases out. And as you can see on that steel plate, I don't know what they weigh. It's that good steel, 500 something. And these rounds hammer that plate. I've got another one further down at 100 something yards. But anyway, you've seen it work, and that was the objective. Maybe we'll look more in the studio. If there is something I wouldn't mind, is this is a plastic barrel band, and sometimes this cleaning rod moves forward. You know how things move forward on recoil that aren't fastened, so this could be better, but maybe there's something I didn't do correctly. Anyhow, as far as an H&R 4570 goes, for me, this is the ticket. You got it.
Woo!
It's great shooting. It's just such a fine shooting rifle. You know, oh, there's what I was talking about. See, that cleaning rod is inching its way forward with each shot. I'll have to do something about that. And see, the barrel band is too, and there's kind of a set screw here, which Anyway, I thought I tightened it, maybe not enough, but I'm gonna have to do something about those two items. They're certainly not deal breakers. I could probably take that cleaning rod off completely, and this will be easy to address. But really, what an excellent, essentially, it's a point and shoot. There's no effort, you don't have to really think about it, and the sights are perfectly matched. They're not too coarse and they're not too fine. There it is. Probably the handiest, easiest to shoot single shot H&R in 4570, and I was handling a similar single shot because I guess these have been discontinued, but I like the style of this gun, and I think that's why they're hard to find. It's got the cleaning rod. It's got that kind of look to it. It's not a, it's not a SHAKIRA, but it's a SHAKIRA. Oh, I should read you the model number. People always ask. So, forgetting about SHAKIRA, which I'm not making up. It's on the chamber, on the barrel, is model 155. So it has a model designation. And then, just for comparison's sake, I thought I'd show you the Henry. And this is available at 4570. We went through this one before. Then I was supposed to sell it. And I couldn't bring myself to sell it. It's just too accurate. It's too easy to shoot, extremely well. And on this one, they didn't quite go to town with wood quality, but this is far better than that SHAKIRA. And this one's in 243, and it's one of those rifles, it almost shoots itself, just effortless to operate. So, I mean, most of you like Henrys, and bravo to Henry, and I used to know the name of the founder. Just a great company. And this was subject to that recall, and I sent it in, and I think I told you how they did it in one day. I don't know, but they did. And it's not that I had a problem before the recall, but anyway, that's the Henry. And then to close off with, I thought I'd show you just how diverse this is actually the same. You could switch parts around from this gun to the SHAKIRA. They really did the most they could with that action, and rightfully so. This is a trap model 12 gauge. Believe it or not, it's actually a 3-inch. It's a 3-inch chamber. I didn't know that. And for somebody who wants to, pick up a excellent trap shotgun, you could hear the ejector. This one had, choke tubes and the works, and pretty high rib. You couldn't go wrong with one of these. Very well stocked, and it has the dual beads. You'll find on a lot of target guns. There are dual beads and some decent checkering. We can look at it more, and I should probably take it out and shoot it and film that. By the way, we are here partly because I wanted to do this academic thing and go through all of your, or some of your messages. But we've had incredible weather in the mountains, and I phoned a fellow I know who's not too far from where we usually shoot, and there was snow and then ice and then rain and then in sequences, and so there was too much of an avalanche risk up there. And I think a creek went across the road again, so we will get out again. It's probably not ideal to sit and listen to me talking, but I do my best always, and I hope you find that interesting. I invite you to look up these rimfire cartridges. You probably noticed they have soft copper cases and work extremely well, and you could accomplish a lot, and they're very cheap to manufacture compared to centerfire, and you can get a lot of power. There's a certain reliability issue which we can talk about another time, but how often do your 22 rounds fail? I guess it happens. Anyway, as usual, I have a lot to say. Thank you for listening, and we'll be filming again. Take care, and like I said at the beginning, all the best for 2023. Let's make it a really great year.